Thank you for joining me for today's practice. Our focus today will be soothing the back. And this is an area which I know that many of us experience chronic tension, and that can be from just the lifestyles we have and the types of work we do, or it could be from perhaps shoveling snow when we have a snowy day. So, regardless of whether you're dealing with chronic back tension or whether you've just overworked your back a little bit and you need some soothing, this practice is going to help you find just that. So, for this practice, you're going to want to have a blanket, either a yoga blanket or some other kind of blanket, or maybe even a couple of towels if you don't have a blanket available. You could also use one or two firm cushions, and you could also use a yoga block. If you're using a yoga block, though, I do recommend having a hand towel or something to put over the block to soften it a little bit for one part of the practice. So that's all we're going to use today. So get your accessories and we'll begin. Let's start our practice lying on our backs. So come on to your mat or your floor space, lying on your backs. And once you get down there, let's bring the feet onto the mat first, knees pointing to the ceiling. And just take a moment to let your hips settle here. If we're dealing with soreness in the back or tightness in the back, tension in the lower back especially, it's nice to take this first or these first few minutes when we get supine on our mat to just let the body settle and to notice where you might be feeling any tension or soreness along your backside. And so after a couple of breaths, just letting your hips settle into the floor, letting go of any holding, maybe you're clenching the glutes or tightening in certain places. Often that kind of muscle reaction is happening unconsciously, just as a protective mechanism, especially if you've overworked your back or you have some chronic tension going on in your back. So after those first several breaths of just letting yourself settle here on your back with your knees up, then I invite you to bring those knees into the chest. And do it slowly, do it gradually. Don't just forcefully bring your knees in all the way. So, in fact, maybe do it very uber slowly, consciously move those feet up. So, gently lift those feet up and just begin to notice. You might use your hands for help. So, you could use your hands to take a hold of your legs to help support the legs. Obviously, we're going to need to engage the core as well in order to manage the movement of the legs here. But we're going to very slowly ease the knees toward us and notice how that feels at the lower back. You're going to feel the flattening of the lower back coming more up into the spine, from the hips to the spine. And then bring your knees to that first place of resistance or first place of where you feel comfortable holding your legs in that flattened kind of sensation at your lower back. So just hold it there and take a couple of nice big deep breaths in and out. And now for some people, that might be with the knees not so far in. For other people, it might be with the knees, of course, farther in. So really just pay attention to the sensation that you're feeling in your backside and where you feel that first sensation, where you want to hold it and breathe a couple of nice big breaths to create a little more ease. Let the hips settle again. And then let's do that a couple more times. And as things settle, each time you bring your knees in a little bit closer, but again, doing it very consciously, moving slowly, finding that next place of sensation where we can again just hold and take a couple breaths. And you might do that 2 or 3 times. Maybe you're able to get those knees all the way into the chest. Maybe you're not. It doesn't matter. We're just going to do it a few times here, bringing the knees in as close to the chest as you feel comfortable. Basically, our intention is to identify and access areas of sensation in the backside that we can ease, where you feel sensation of tension or stretch or resistance, maybe even some soreness, and we want to ease those sensations. So once you find that kind of third or fourth place of holding the knees in and breathing and easing the backside. Let's take one more final big breath wherever you are with this, and then ease those knees back away and bring those feet back down onto the mat. Wonderful. So now go ahead and stretch the legs out a little bit. Let's give the back a little bit of opposite feel, stretching those legs out. Maybe even take those arms up above if that feels okay. And just lengthen, reaching in opposite directions, very gently though. Not an aggressive stretch, just very gently reaching through the toes, reaching through the fingertips, and allowing that to give you just that little bit of stretch here. Take a breath or two here. Nice big full breath, even breath in, even breath out. Awesome. And then after that, let's bring those arms down to either side. Let your legs go. Shake out those legs. Now, if you're finding that this is uncomfortable and you're feeling tension at the back, bring a blanket under those knees. So if the back is feeling sore, it's feeling tense, it needs to be a little more supported, get that rolled blanket or rolled towels and bring them under your knees, and then come back onto your back. And that should hopefully alleviate some of the tension if you do feel tension once you stretch your legs out like that. Shake out those legs, arms are at the sides, and we're going to now do some undulating conscious movement to ease some tension through the fascial tissue. So begin by imagining that you're anchoring your shoulder blades. You're anchoring your shoulder blades against the floor, and now from those spaces of anchoring or places of anchoring, we're going to start with the left arm and reach through that left arm as if your left arm is growing from your shoulder, and just lengthening that, pulling gently as if your arm is growing. And if your head is relaxed, it'll actually pull your head over to the side. Take a nice big full breath in and out, and then relax back, and then do the same thing on the other side, keeping the shoulder blade against the floor, anchored to the floor. Feel the right arm growing from your arm. Take a big full breath in and out when you've hit the end of that reach, and then relax back. Let's do that 2 more times on either side, letting the head be relaxed, and just notice how this feels. Again, it's not aggressive. If at any point you feel like there's a little bit of discomfort or a little too much discomfort, just don't reach as far. Just reach only as far as you feel sensation, and maybe even a little bit of discomfort's okay, because we want to breathe through that and ease that discomfort, but definitely not pain. Pain is what we want to make sure we don't move ourselves into. Wonderful. So after 2 movements like that, then just come back and relax. Take a moment and breathe and feel that. And then we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to do it through the legs. So imagine that you're lengthening, you're growing your legs. So I'm going to start with that left leg again, reaching through that left leg as if it's growing through the hip. Again, very gentle, and then relax after a big full breath, not forcing it. You'll know if you're forcing it if it starts actually hurting. If it's painful at that low back region, then you know you've gone too far and you're being too aggressive. So it's really nuanced, these movements. And that's why we're being very conscientious. We're moving consciously as you stretch and lengthen as if that leg is growing from your hips. Each hip, you're taking a full breath. We'll do 1 more on either side, reaching through the hip or through the leg from the hip. And that'll also indicate to you where you are holding some tension, because when you do that and you're paying attention, you do it slowly, you might notice, like I noticed there's a little bit of tension right around the sacrum still when I was doing that movement. So it gives us a little more awareness too of where we might want to pay attention in our body as we're continuing with our practice. So after that, now let's bring our feet up. So if you had something there under your knees, you may even push it away. Bring your feet up and bring them wide. Arms can be anywhere, resting at the side, wherever you are comfortable. And let's begin just doing some side to side rocking movements there with those knees. And again, make it a mindful movement. Breathe with that movement, whatever way feels good to you. So you might inhale as the knees come up. You might exhale as the knees come to either side. Or you might take a full inhale, exhale as the knees go over to one side. taking a full inhale and exhale at one side, bringing them up, and full inhale, exhale to the other side. So see what pace feels good to you today. And after several movements like this, we're going to rest our knees over to the left. So that lower leg is completely relaxed, completely neutral. If it feels like it's engaging, you might want to bring a cushion or a blanket or a towel under that lower leg so that it can completely rest if it's not rested against the floor. And that top leg, in my case, the right leg, is kind of dangling or hanging, and we want that to just, we want to release that just as is. So notice if you're holding back or engaging, or notice if you're being aggressive and pushing. And don't do either of those things. Just let that leg hang, let it go, release it to gravity, and breathe. Bring awareness into that top leg. Breathe into it. Notice the sensation of stretch, and perhaps imagine your breath flowing into those areas of stretch. Maybe even visualize those areas of sensation, either softening or easing or releasing, relaxing, whatever makes sense to you based on the sensation that you're feeling. And we'll take 2 more nice big breaths wherever you are with this, allowing the breath to create ease. We're letting the shape and the breath do the work here for us. Otherwise, there's not a lot of effort we're needing to put into this practice right now. So with that next breath, let's move that right foot, in my case, the right foot. If you're on your other side, then of course, whichever leg is the top leg, move that foot a little bit further away from center. So I'm moving it a little away from center, and usually you don't have to go too far, just a little bit further away, and you'll notice kind of that next edge, that next area of sensation or stretch or tension, resistance. It could typically be in that front area of the thigh or maybe into the hip flexor region. So wherever it is, pause there, and same thing. Same MO. We're going to pause, we're going to settle, release to gravity, we're going to breathe those nice big full breaths. Now sometimes I like to add my touch, the touch of my hand to my body to offer that little extra layer of healing to my practice. So I'm bringing my right hand to my hip, right at my hip joint, because I feel that kind of resistance there at my hip joint, my hip flexor muscles here at the front of my hips. And so just by placing my hand and not pressing, I'm not pressing aggressively, I'm just letting the weight of my hand sink into that space, maybe just a gentle press, but again, not aggressive, and breathing into that, letting the leg go and allowing the placement of the hand to offer some additional healing, some additional easing. It's like it almost helps coax the tissue in that area and the tissue of the leg and hip to relax some more. So now I might do this a little bit more, maybe once or twice more. I might tweak that foot further out to the right once it feels, or if it feels like the leg wants to go further out in order to go a little deeper into the release. Now, what you want to be mindful of is not only the hip and how far the hip wants to go, but also the knee, making sure that doesn't create extra tension on the knee, and also the lower back region near the sacrum, that it's not compressing or feeling pinched back there. Anything like that, then we don't want to go any further. So only go as far or take it further along as it feels comfortable for you. And so wherever you are now with this, let's just take 3 more nice big breaths. If at any point, if it felt like it was too much, you just back off and go to a previous positioning. And with that last breath, we're going to slowly, mindfully move that foot back towards center, doing it gradually and slowly with awareness, and then take it all the way toward the other side. So maybe you rest the foot right against the other foot. Maybe that's a good place to stop, depending on what you're feeling. Or maybe you actually bring the foot on top of the other foot. So in a very mindful way, being very conscious of the sensations in your thigh, in your hip, in your lower back, take that foot as far up along to the other side as feels comfortable. And once you do that, your opposite arm, or that same side arm, is going to go out to the side, and your opposite arm is just going to rest somewhere on that leg, on that thigh. So once again, just applying that healing touch, that soothing touch to coax the leg to come to ease. Maybe there's a particular sore spot also that you're feeling. Maybe that's a good place to put your hand. And here again, we're going to just hold it and breathe. Some nice breaths. Even full in breath, even full out breath. Letting go. So after several breaths, you might be able to take that foot further along, further away. So play with the positioning again. And we'll do that maybe once or twice more, moving that leg further along into the spinal twist, if that feels good. And maybe we reposition the hand as we take that leg further along, depending on where we might want to add that additional soothing or healing to that leg, that hip, that thigh. So wherever you are now with this, let's take 2 more nice big even breaths. Doing this in a gentle, easeful, compassionate way, letting the breath and the shape do most of the work. Now, after you complete that second breath, mindfully ease that foot back towards center, and when it comes back to the mat, bring both knees back up, legs are apart. Maybe you do a little gentle movement side to side again, just to find some kind of neutrality in the hips there. Maybe you bring your knees into the chest to once again flatten out that back, and that can always feel good. I always recommend, if you feel a little tension, if you want to take a little break, bring those knees in, flatten out the back at any time in between your different poses and movements that we're doing, if you feel the need to do so, to give the back a little more ease. So once you're feeling complete with that, knees come back into that upright state, feet on the mat, and now we'll take it to the other side. So now resting the other leg, that's the lower leg, in a way that is comfortable, just kind of taking it out of the picture, letting it be completely neutral, so that we can bring our focus to that upper leg. In my case, it's the left leg that I have now hanging in air, and I'm going to release any resistance or engagement and let gravity do its thing, and I'm going to breathe into the areas of sensation. And once I feel like I found some ease, that's when I begin to tweak that foot further out, away from center, and I look for that next place of resistance, next place of sensation and stretch. And this is where also, if I want to add some gentle, soothing touch somewhere, I can. Again, it's optional. You don't have to. I find that it is helpful to me to add that touch of the hand. You might feel better just letting your arms be at rest at your sides somewhere. You might be stretching your arms here too. Maybe it feels better to bring them above your head or out to the side in T shape. So explore. This is your practice. Explore what feels good to you in a mindful way. And again, as that softens for you or eases for you, and your body may decide or ask for a little bit deeper release, you might take that foot even further out. Of course, being mindful that this side may be different from the other side, and maybe the other side went out a lot further, or maybe that side did not go out as far and this side wants to go further. It's all good. Honor each side and where each side needs to be today in its practice, in releasing the tension from that side and creating more soothing to that hip and to that lower back region. And we'll find completion in the next 2 or 3 big full breaths here. Nice even breath in, even breath out. And then when that does feel complete to you, again, very mindfully, slowly moving that foot back towards center. We're going to continue to move it all the way over to the other side. So often I'll say just stop when the feet meet, just to see how that feels, if you want to go further or if you want to stay here at first. And if it feels okay, maybe you take that foot up along the other leg, wherever, again, that first place of resistance feels to you. And this time I switch arms. I take my opposite side arm and bring that to the thigh, the hip, the leg, wherever it might feel good. if you want to. Ah, I love to sigh on the exhale. That always feels good as well. Another way, sounding is another way to create ease and release. And just notice as you're holding these poses, these are therapeutic poses, so we're holding them for a while, and there's not a lot of doing involved. It's more about allowing and releasing and paying attention. And so in these types of therapeutic poses, the mind might wander off, start thinking about something else. And if you notice that happening, that's okay. Acknowledge that it happened, but just bring the mind back. Just bring it back into this moment, bring it back to your body, bring it back to whatever sensation you're feeling. Bring it back to your breathing, following those even breaths and maybe visualizing the breath going into areas to cause that soothing, that release. Wherever you are with this, we're going to take 2 or 3 more big breaths. So if you want to take your foot further along, you can. And when you find completion with that last breath, then slowly bring the foot back onto the mat. Both knees come up. Once again, a little swaying side to side. And maybe one more time, a little flattening of the back, hugging in at whatever place feels good to you. So again, don't necessarily force the knees all the way in unless bringing them all the way in feels really good to you. Or maybe even just kind of toggle the knees forward and back a little bit with a little rocking movement. And that way you're covering more ground. You're kind of flattening your lower back region all the way from the pelvic rim, base of the top of the sacrum, to the lower back, lower spinal region. Awesome. Once that feels complete, take one more nice big breath here as you hug your knees. And then slowly roll to one side. Ease your body upright. And coming upright, let's just take a moment, upright seated in a bound angle. So bringing those bottoms of the feet to touch, get the buns out of the way. Let's just do a little butterfly flutter here for those legs again. Releasing the legs, releasing the thighs and the hips. Awesome. Then we're going to do a little movement with the spine and use some movement to now create more ease and release for that back region, our backside region. So let's come into a table pose. And before you do this, you might want to bring a blanket under your knees or maybe bring some support for your wrists if you have any kind of need to support the wrist joints or the knee joints a little bit more. Feel free to do that. And then once you're there, align your hands right under your shoulders, knees under the hips in that nice table pose, and bring the spine to neutrality. So notice what I mean by that is notice if you're allowing the back to sag where your belly's sagging down, or notice if you're engaging and you're rounding up through the back. So find neutrality through the spine. Pelvic floor is slightly engaged. Your navel is slightly pressed upward, inward towards your spine to create some strength so that you have that nice neutral spine. And then once you're there, we're going to do some cat-cows here, but we're going to do them slightly differently than you might be used to. So we're going to take a full breath in and out in each pose, in the cat pose as well as the cow pose. So take that nice breath in and go into cat with the tailbone lifting, the head lifting, the belly and the chest dropping, and then exhale here as well. So nice full in-breath and exhale. Take one more in-breath here, and then on the exhale, now go into cat. And take a full breath here. So hold the cat, take another inhale, another exhale, and on the in-breath, now go back into cow. I think I may have misspoke before. I meant cow when I said this. I think I may have said cat. Full inhale, full exhale, and on the next exhale, now going into cat. So that's basically what you do. You're going to add a full breath in between before moving to the next pose or in our cat-cow movement. And that extra breath just helps the body to create a little more ease in each of those shapes that we're taking. And you might decide to take more than one breath. Maybe you take 2 or 3 breaths before you move on to the next pose in our cat-cow. So we'll do this maybe 2 or 3 more times. Noticing how this feels along that spine, where our focus is loosening the back, bringing soothing and release to the backside along the spine. So of course, moving to the extent that it feels good to you. Make this your last cat pose here, finishing up with a full, at least one full in-breath and out-breath here in cat, and then coming back to that neutral spine in tabletop pose. Let's bring those feet to touch and the knees a little bit wider. Take a breath in, and on the exhale, hips go back to the heels as far as they'll go. We're going to come into a nice child pose. So find a way to rest your head, whether it's on the mat or whether it's on your hands to start. Actually, we'll be using the hands in a stretch. So maybe find a cushion or a block or a blanket to put under your head to rest it on if your head is not comfortable going all the way down to the floor. And I do recommend getting those hips as far back as possible. So sometimes we tend to bring our heads down, let our hips hang up. If that's where you need to be because of any resistance, that's fine. But if you can go further with your hips, go as far back with your hips and then bring your head down. And if your head doesn't come all the way down, that's when we use our supports. So make sure that you find the shape that feels best for you today, and then settle into your child pose. Take a couple of big deep breaths here. Breathe into that back body. Feel the back body expand. We're breathing into the back side along the spine. Notice with that nice big inhale, if you are recognizing tension, the inhale often leads us right into areas of tension. So at the end of that in-breath, you may identify tension or soreness or places along your spine or in the backside that require a little more soothing, a little more releasing. One more big breath here. And then if your arms aren't fully extended, go ahead and straighten those arms, lengthen them, maybe spider walk those fingers as far as they can. You'll get a nice stretch through those arms at the shoulders. And then anchor down through your hands. So I like to lift my fingertips and thumbs and really anchor down through the base of the fingers and the heels of the hands, and then bring my fingertips back down, anchoring through the hands, and pull back through my hips a little bit. So feel like my hips are pulling back. Maybe you lift your head slightly in order to help with that. And it's just a gentle pull, but that little bit of pull, you'll feel that stretch through the arms and the shoulders and maybe even the upper back, tractioning the spine a little bit in this way. Take 2 more breaths here like this with that traction as you gently pull back through the hips, and then relax completely. Relax those arms completely. Big breath in, big breath out. Awesome. Now slowly lift the head and let's walk those hands over to the left side. Walking as far over to the left that feels good without crunching. So notice if you kind of crunch into your gut, we want to keep the spine long. So keep those arms extended and the spine long. And then once you find you or found your proper place to settle, then go ahead and ease. And you might bring your elbows back to the floor. You might bring your right hand over top your left. Or you might take that left hand and actually bring it alongside if that feels better for that left shoulder, or maybe even left hand at your lower back. So find the positioning that feels good to you. And once again, 2 or 3 nice big even breaths in and out. So we're opening up through the side body, but this also has an effect on our backside and the muscles attaching along the spine. Everything is connected, of course. So we're working through the fascial lines of the body here. 2 or 3 nice big full breaths in and out. Awesome. And as you complete that next breath, let's bring that left hand back alongside the right. If it's not already there, come back to center. Pause at center for a moment. And then when you're ready, let's walk over to the other side. So again, same thing. Keep that spine long.
Reach through those arms, lengthen the upper body. Keep those hips settled though. So notice if this causes your hips to lift, you want to try to still keep those hips as settled as possible. And then wherever you find your shape on this side, you can then decide to adjust your right arm in a way that feels good to you. And we breathe those nice, big, even breaths again. Each breath helps to bring a little more ease to the areas of resistance or the areas of stretch. You can visualize your breath softening, releasing the tension, or maybe you would just bring other imagery into it if that feels better. Sometimes I like to imagine, like melting snow. It's snowing outside here where I am. We're getting a beautiful snowfall here, little winter storm, and so imagining snow melting, and maybe that helps coax the tissue to melt a little, to soften a little in your body wherever it needs to. One more big breath here, wherever you are. And then easing the arm back. Come back to center. Pause at center for a moment. And then gently coming back up. So as you come up, come to tabletop first for a moment. Find that neutral spine and then come onto your knees, standing on your knees here. And let's give ourselves a little back bend here. So coming upright onto the knees, engage the pelvic floor, upright pelvis, bring hands to the pelvic rim, fingers down, thumbs up, and just let the weight of your hands sink into your hips. And as you do that, you might feel a little stretch, a gentle pull downward or push downward, down through the hips a little bit, lifting the navel and the rib cage up, elbows kind of gently pulling out. So your hands are pushing down gently, your pelvic floor is pulling up, elbows are gently pulling out to either side, and your navel is pulling up, rib cage is lifting up. So all of those opposing forces in the body are creating a little stretch at that lower back region along the spine. It may feel significant, it may not feel significant. Either way, it's doing something, trust me. And we're just going to take a few breaths here, just like this. Just that gentle engagement, pelvic floor lifted, navel, lifted in and up, elbows pulling out to either side, hands pressing gently down. One more breath here. And on the exhale this time, let's just take the top of the hips back slightly and come into a little back bend. So continuing to ground through the knees, continuing to engage the pelvic floor, the navel, the core region, elbows still gently pulling out, head retracts. Take 2 more breaths in your back bend wherever you are. Hips stay over the knees though. Even though we're tilting the hips back, we don't move the hips back beyond the knees. They stay over the knees. And with that next in-breath, slowly the chin comes back, the head comes back, the shoulders align over those hips once again. Relax those hands. Maybe we shake those hands out a little bit. Let's roll the shoulders a few times back, a few times forward. And shake out again those arms. And now we're going to come onto our bellies in a pose, and it's going to be a supported or therapeutic Sphinx pose. So grabbing your blanket, your towels, whatever it is that you have, your cushions, we're going to fold them in a way where you're going to you want it to be maybe a 4 inches or so, 3 or 4 inches high. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring our bellies onto this support. So the pelvis is slightly lifted. The idea or the intention is to lift the pelvis. Typically, I'm going to kind of demonstrate, typically in Sphinx pose, we would come down and the front of our pelvis would be right up against the mat in our Sphinx pose. And in this case, I'd like to have the pelvis off the floor to create a little traction. So we're going to bring that support right at the belly. in order to have the pelvis lifted. So again, use whatever support and as much support that you need for this to be comfortable, to have that little bit of space there at the pelvis. And the legs are straight back. You have your forearms parallel to each other with the fingers splayed, elbows under the shoulders. So the hands are gently pressing down. Shoulder blades are easing down, lifting up through the rib cage, soft face. Now, it's not a very active sphinx like we might normally do. This is going to be a little less active. So what I offered you is just what we want to do in order to have our nice, safe alignment. But otherwise, we're just going to let the weight of our body kind of sink. So feel your belly, feel your torso sinking into your support. And in doing so, allow your hips, allow the pelvis to sink toward the floor. Now, it may not actually touch the floor because of the support, but we're imagining or we're allowing gravity to do the work here again. We're really letting go of any resistance to our pelvis being gently pulled upon in this shape. So we're just holding and breathing. Now, in this pose, also, for those of us that might have some stiffness in the neck, it might feel good to just support the head, because the weight of the head can sometimes feel like it's a little much as we hold the pose. So if that feels comfortable or uncomfortable to you, where you feel like you want to support your head, you can just make fist, big fist with both hands, and rest your head that way, or maybe bring a block under your head if you have accessories to do so. We're going to hang out here for just a few more breaths. Breathing into this. Letting the weight of the legs sink. Notice if you're tensing your legs or resisting through the legs. Sometimes I notice I engage through my thighs because my thighs are so used to just activating. So notice if that's happening, and maybe take a few deep breaths and really let go of any engagement through your thighs. There's no need to engage. Again, this is not an active Sphinx pose. Let the muscles of the legs relax. Let the muscles of the glutes, the gluteal muscles, relax. Everything is easing. There's minimal effort here. The arms and the upper body, your core is making the most effort in terms of holding you in this shape. And we're going to hold it here just for another 2 or 3 breaths. Nice, big, even, full breaths in, full breath out. Ah, beautiful. Awesome. And then slowly, maybe bring your hands a little closer under your shoulders so you can press back. Maybe you take another child pose here to give the back another opposite feel. And then we're going to take our support out of the way, whatever we were using. We're going to do one more movement here. And we are going to bring our knees further back from the hips. So unlike table, where the knees are under our hip centers, the knees are behind the hips. And we're going to bring our hands forward of our shoulders. So again, unlike table, where the hands are typically under the shoulders, this time they're going to be forward of the shoulders. So maybe about a full hand forward, and the knees are going to be similarly behind your hips. And we're going to do a little movement here where we take that breath in and we allow the pelvis to come down as if we're coming into an up dog, and then the shoulders end up being over the hands. So if you need to make any adjustment with your alignment, go ahead and make your adjustment with the positioning of your hands for this. And then on the exhale, we're going to come back into maybe not a full child pose, because maybe our hips won't go all the way back to our heels, but just extending back as far as we can. And we're going to continue with that flow, conscious movement here, right? Really noticing, making it slow and steady, noticing the nuances of this movement, breathing nice, even breaths throughout the movement. So it doesn't matter how many breaths you take here. If you're going really slow, you might be taking multiple breaths here as you move. And if the body feels like it wants to move a little faster, by all means, go right ahead, as long as, again, you're being mindful with that movement. And it's conscious movement here. So notice how this is feeling as you kind of undulate from your up dog to your child. Notice how this is feeling along the spine and at your back. from the lower back to the upper back. Really feel grounded here through this movement. So we're staying grounded through those hands and through the knees and the tops of the feet. Giving ourselves that secure foundation as we move the spine, as we move the pelvis, the hips, the shoulders. Let's do 2 more. And this last one, let's hold that up dog just for an extra breath. See if you can release, press down through the hands. Take that exhale and bring it back. And actually just come right into a child pose, all the way into your child pose, resting your head down again. A couple of big breaths into the backside. Maybe you toggle those hips side to side. That often feels good to that lower back. Wonderful. And then easing onto the belly, all the way down onto the belly. Let's come into a crocodile. So hands to opposite elbow with your forehead on your top forearm, or simply stack one hand on top of the other. Let's splay those legs out, feet out. Point those toes comfortably. Let them relax. So see where you want to be with this. Find the shape that works for you today. Perhaps you even bend those knees and do a little windshield wiper side to side. And bring those feet back to rest. And let's just take a few big breaths here in crocodile. Feel, once again, the breath pressing into the floor. Feel the breath expanding into the back body and the side body. Notice if you're holding. This is definitely where I have to pay attention to my shoulders, and I tend to hold in my shoulders here. So relax. And notice that once you let go of any holding patterns, notice what that does to other places in your body. I notice I relax my shoulders and my upper back feels better. In fact, even my lower back feels better. Becoming aware of that inner connection within the body. One more nice big breath here. And then gently, let's bring those legs closer together. Let's extend one arm above head. Use the other to roll onto our backs once again. Finding that comfortable lying position on your back, supine on your back. And once you're there, you may want to hug those knees again. You may want to just hug those knees. It feels so good to flatten out the back and hug those knees, especially when we are dealing with soreness or tension in the back, and that's our focus for today, to soothe the backside. And once you've done that, bring those feet back onto the mat. And actually, I should have suggested to have your support nearby. So if it's not nearby, you may want to grab it. But you could use a block for this next pose, or you could grab the blanket or the towel that we were using, and the same kind of fold that we used before. You would use that same kind of fold, and whether you use that or whether you use the block, whichever works for you, we're going to place that right under the sacrum. So lifting those hips. Let's bring that block or that folded towel. Make sure the fold is nice and flat and even so that our hips are square and even if you're using a towel or a blanket or something for this. And we want to make sure that the support is not on our spine or not under our spine. It's under the sacrum. It's under the pelvis. Now, if you're using a cushion or a blanket or something, it might be bigger, and therefore it might actually extend out from under the sacrum to go up toward the spine, and that's okay because it's soft, so it's not going to hurt the spine. But if you're using a block, you definitely don't want to be on the spine. You want to make sure you're right on the sacrum, and you'll be able to tell because it'll actually feel comfortable when you found the right spot. Will be the most comfortable spot. So once you're there, relax the arms in whichever way you'd like to relax them. We're doing a little therapeutic bridge pose here. And I always recommend starting out with those knees bent so that you can just really let the hips settle once again. Let the weight of your hips sink into your support, whatever that support is. Release engagement at the core. Once again, there's very minimal effort here. We allow the shape and the breath and our intention to do the work for us. And as things ease, you might find that you can take those legs further out. And maybe you do this gradually, or maybe you are familiar with this pose and you know where your body wants to be with this, and you might be able to take those legs fully out, extended fully out. Again, there's nothing wrong with easing into it gradually. Often you might actually accomplish more that way because you actually address any of the layers of resistance along the way before you fully extend your legs. And those layers of resistance are maybe at your hip flexors, maybe through the thighs. So I personally like to kind of gradually ease my way into it so that I can really become aware of those different layers of resistance, kind of the nuances that I could be feeling along the way before just extending my legs fully straight. But do what feels right for you today. And then once we are in wherever shape feels good for us to rest in, we're going to hang out there for a good minute or two. So once again, breathing. And if you're in this for a while, and if your body starts realizing that it's becoming a little too intense, by all means, feel free to back off. That's what I'm finding today, is that I went a little too far too quick. And that can happen. It can happen to all the best of us, even those of us who've been practicing for a long time. And that's why it's important in each moment, each time we practice, to really pay attention, to move consciously so that we don't go beyond our edges out of habit. Because that's the way I did the pose last time. I should be able to do the pose again the same way. Well, not necessarily, because your body's different now. Especially if you maybe have done some extra hard work that has caused some strain to your back, or I shouldn't say strain, because if your back is strained, we really shouldn't be stretching it. But if you've worked your back in a way that it needs a little extra soothing, that's the better way to describe it or explain it. So we're still hanging out. This is another place where maybe you bring your hands to the body for added healing or soothing. So you might bring hands to the lower ribs or to the belly. You might bring hands to the pelvis. So if that feels good to you, feel free to do that. And we're going to hang out here for several more breaths. And I'll do so in silence, just so that you can really tune inward. So let's take 3 more nice, big, full, even breaths in and out. Finding completion in these last few breaths, whatever that means to you. And when you've completed your last breath in this shape, very mindfully ease the feet up. Wonderful. We're going to do one more thing here with the support underneath. Gently ease one knee up, followed by the other, and then take those legs straight up. Now, as you do that, if you feel like you need to adjust your support, as I need to adjust my block a little bit to be a little more comfortable for my sacral region, you can make adjustments and then bring those legs straight up, modified legs up the wall here, where we're just going to allow our legs to float in air. So some of you may want to bring your hands to your thighs to kind of hold your legs to give them a little added support. That's perfectly fine. Not a problem at all. Feel free to do that if that feels good. Otherwise, you can rest your arms anywhere along your side. And the legs are obviously making some effort here in order to stay held in air like this, but we want to minimize that effort. We want to bring as much ease to this as possible. And so just imagine that you're maybe allowing your legs to float in air or float in water. Imagine the sensation of floating in water. If you happen to be able to float your legs in water like this. And if there's a little bit of shaking, natural shaking or natural rocking happening, allow it. It's perfectly fine. Just observe whatever you're experiencing. Continue with the nice, even, smooth breaths in and out, and know that your body is doing exactly what it needs to do here. Receive the pose, however it is, for you today. Allow your head, your face to relax, shoulder blades settled into the floor, arms relaxed. I'm going to take 3 more nice full breaths in and out. Full breath in, full breath out. As you finish that last breath, just slowly bend those knees. And you might even choose to bring your knees in towards you if that feels good to you here, before you then slowly bring the feet back down. I like to do it one at a time. Once your feet are down, plant those heels under your knees, plant them firmly, press into the feet to lift the hips, take that support away, and maybe lift a little higher with those hips if that feels good into an actual bridge pose, and then slowly ease it down from the top of the back, middle back, lower back, coming down all the way, and knees come in. One last time, we're going to flatten that back with some hugging of the knees, maybe some gentle rocking side to side, maybe doing that rocking, undulating movement combination where we rock side to side and also undulate the knees away from us and toward us. So see what feels good to you here. And finding completion with that. Whenever you do, let's ease ourselves into our Shavasana for final relaxation. So if you would like support under your legs again, if you would like to cover up your body here, if you'd like an eye pillow, if you'd like something under your neck or head, go ahead and give yourself whatever you need as you come into your Shavasana for a few minutes here of final relaxation to bring our practice to completion. Once you've settled in your shape, whatever that is for you today, I invite you to simply notice your body here, scanning the body from head to toe, and allowing the body to sink and settle into the floor below, letting the weight of the head sink, letting the weight of the shoulders and the arms sink, maybe offering any final gentle movement that might feel good to help you do that, to help you settle those areas of the body. Letting the backside sink, all the areas of the back that are touching the floor. Letting your hips sink, your pelvic region, sacral region. Letting your legs sink, your thighs, your knees. If you have supports under your knees, let the knees sink into those supports. And then letting your heels sink. And then I'll invite you to shift awareness from the body to your breathing. And simply notice the flow of breath. There's nothing to do here. No need to make effort to shift or change your breathing. But just notice the flow of breath and how the breath wants to move at this time. Just maintaining awareness at your breath, at your body. Noticing the wandering mind, and if it does wander off, bringing it back into this moment, into this space. Settling the mind somewhere in this moment, in this space, just as you settled your physical body. Perhaps you settle the mind at your heart space. Perhaps you settle your mind on a mantra or an affirmation. Perhaps you settle your mind on a visualization or some sort of imagery. But allowing yourself to be fully settled. Let's take a nice deep breath in and out, maybe sighing out, sounding out on the exhale. Maybe beginning to move the body slowly and gently, wiggling toes and fingers, ankles and wrists. Perhaps turning the head gently side to side. Gradually making those movements a little bit bigger. Whatever type of movement might feel good to you. Eventually bringing the feet onto the mat and hugging those knees in one more time. Flattening the back in whichever way that feels good to you. Whenever you feel ready, extending your left arm above so that you can use it as a pillow as you roll to your left side. Just pausing there briefly. When it feels right, gently pressing into the floor with your other hand to come up into a comfortable seat. As you find your comfortable seat, settle in to that seat through your lower body, and lift up gently through your upper body, and just allow yourself to observe the spine, the sensations around the spine, and the feelings around the backside. Soft face, soft shoulders. And let's take a nice big full breath by inhaling those arms all the way around and up, and exhaling, bringing the hands down to the heart space on that exhale. Namaste. Thank you for practicing with me today. Until next time, be well.